You weren't here.
He wasn't here either.
So I said you weren't here either.
Right. But I checked up on my neighbor Ruvain yesterday afternoon. Okay?
See, Ruvain, you better check her out.
Okay, we have some administrativia to take care of today too.
Do you have any idea of the schedule coming up?
That's what I am going to
tell you.
That's what I'm going to raise the question.
Are you going to do the dead people first?
Of course. Okay. I even, by the way, brought a printed off from the Koran, a map that shows the machloket.
Are you talking about the little coastal strip?
Yeah, I'm going to pass it around so people can see.
I guess Jews always like going to the beach.
Okay. It's interesting that...
they have maps in the Art Scroll too. And then Reb Yehuda says that everything...
I know, it's got his also.
It's got both. The Straits of Gibraltar are all Israeli waters.
It includes a good part of the Mediterranean.
All of it, except for the islands, meaning Greece and Italy and Sardinia.
Well, that's another discussion there. Okay, learning sponsors. A year of learning, Isaac and Evelyn Blachler in memory of his sister, Chaya Rachel Bas Isser. Friends of Leonie Meisman, Leah Sabra Bas Chanuch Zundel. Friends of Melaskotsky, Moshe Zelig Ben Mordechai. Martin Littman and family in memory of his wife, Malka Chana Bas Pinchas. Friends of Herb Jeremiah, Tzvi Ben Zev. Friends of Sam Coleman, Shmuel Ben Yaakov. Friends of Gideon Lazinski, Mordechai Shlomo Ben Meir. Bella and David Adler in memory of her father, Eliyahu Ben Yosef Kohen, as well as those who were inspired by our Rebbitzin Emerita, Sheila Shapiro, Sarah Esther Malka Bat Shalom Yisachar. Have a month of learning by Susan and Ronald Podolsky in memory of her mother, Chaya Bas Abraham Dov. By B. Pizer in memory of her father, Yitzchak Dov Ben Shmuel. Judith and Michael Paretsky in memory of her mother, Reza Bat Yehudilei. Stanley Presser in memory of his wife, Chaya Leah Bas Zev HaKohen. And Malki and Rabbi Dr. Yankee Honig in memory of her aunt, Emma Edel Bat Shimon. A week of learning by Ruth Kostman in memory of her son, Yisrael Yosef Ben Shmuel. Alan Blumenfeld in memory of his mother, Fegi Bat Pinchas. Marcia and Gary Schrager in memory of her father, Shmuel Ben Meir. Okay, today, being the 24th of May, we have a day of learning by Bob and Judy Thaler in memory of his father, David Eliyahu Ben Chaim Yaakov. Shamas have an aliyah, crank or field, Velti Yeshir Shamatliya, and L'chol B'nai Yisrael a good gebenchtia.
Amen.
Okay. We're missing a couple people. Ted's not in yet.
Well, Marty is potting with.
Yes, no, Bob is here. Okay. I have been trying to work out the idea of a schedule during the time that won't be present. Okay. I asked Michael to share with me his summer schedule. Ruvain has agreed to pinch hit as well. Okay. And Rabbi Shimon Green has also agreed.
Huh?
No, he got to me. Okay. And Rabbi Shimon Green also has agreed. Okay. And yesterday, Tzvi Karpel has also agreed to pinch occasionally a little bit. Okay. So we've got a number of people, but I focused primarily on, I did not bring the schedule with me. But I will present it based on the fact that the Rabbi Kranzler, who is my co-chairman for education, and I had a difference of opinion as to how we should have somebody doing the daf. I felt strongly that it's important that it be an individual present in the room in the room, either somebody who has given daf for our group before, like Michael or Ruvain or Rabbi Shimon, okay, who does it on Shabbos now, okay? And some of the guys who come during the week come also Shabbos afternoon to hear him, okay? Although his style is a little bit different, okay? I would say his style is between what I'll call my style, which is a little more academic, compared to Michael's, which is a little more yeshivish. His style is between the two, okay? So that just to give you a sense of how he's a Magid Shir, okay? Okay. Rabbi Kranzler felt sometimes he goes too fast for the group.
It's not a big deal.
Okay.
Rabbi Kranzler's never here.
Okay, well, he comes on Shabbos.
So,
okay, so the point
when he gives the shir.
And when he gives the shir. Okay, so the question would be, is it better to have a Magid Shir in the flesh, so to speak, okay, with whom people can interact, ask questions, things like that? Or his suggestion was that we do it through Zoom, okay, and do it that way. I felt, again, my personal feeling is that it's more comfortable to have somebody who you can ask a shaila to and get a response back, and that's not always possible in a Zoom situation.
Let me tell you how he did the hard drive. It's the yeshiva guy. I mean, Moshe has a lot of chutzpah to say that he do it through Zoom. You want a live person over there.
Okay, I'm just presenting it. I want to be able to say I presented it to the group, okay, to get their input. Okay, all right, okay, all right. If that, do I hear from anybody else? Preferences? Okay.
Rabbi Green is a wonderful Magid.
Okay, he is very good. Okay, Michael does a very good job. Okay, Ruvain does a terrific job when he's doing it too. That's why I felt from our own guys, it would be, okay, it means a little juggling, okay, in terms of schedules, some a little more than others, and that's what I've got on a calendar at home that I'm going to.
You actually made a cheshbon? Wow.
Yeah, I took the dates you gave me that you were going to be away. I took the dates that he gave me that he was going away. I put them both on a calendar. I compared it to what dates were going to be needed. I also compared what dates I will be back and then going away again. Okay. Okay. I will give that. I will share it with everybody tomorrow. Okay, morning.
Figs and grapes. Also.
Okay. All right. With that case. All right. So I have an understanding from everybody. Good morning, Alan. Okay. I have an understanding from everybody that that's our preference. Okay. And all right, it wasn't my intent to influence, but just to clarify. What?
But on Shavuos, we're going to make...
On Shavuos, it will be, I'm assuming, I didn't see a Shavuos schedule yet, but on Shavuos, Rabbi Green, without the E, will not be here. So I will be giving it both days of Shavuos, and I assume it will be similar to the Shabbos schedule.
Right. Okay.
That's my assumption.
And then I guess I'm Sunday, Monday, Tuesday.
Right. Okay. And then I'm going to ask Ruvain to pick up on Wednesday because Rabbi Green won't be here maybe until Thursday. He's coming back on Wednesday, but I didn't know the time. So I've got it planned out. I will share it with everybody tomorrow. Okay. Okay. I also, sorry. I also have a little page that I took from the Koran. On the bottom half of the page, it gives two pictures of maps that will deal with the difference about the border along the sea between the Chachamim and Rabbi Yehuda. Okay, I just felt that would be helpful. Okay. All right, so we'll pass that around.
People are interested. That maps are also in art.
I'm sure ArtScroll. I didn't have access to ArtScroll.
Okay. On 7B1. There's a map.
But anyway. Okay, so I'm going to pick up. Basically, we're going to start in a moment on the top of Chet Amud Aleph. Okay, but I just want to review the fact that they were trying to clarify the status of a get. Good morning. Welcome. Hello. Okay, written on a boat. And they tried to bring the parallel by saying, well, what about earth that comes from outside Eretz Yisrael? Okay, and what happens with that? Saying that then that earth, when items are planted in it, it has the same status as land of Eretz Yisrael. It still needs masrot and still has a requirement of shviz. Okay, so then the Gemara went on to give the example of a potted plant. Okay, all right. Okay, you have the pot that's on stilts or on poles. Okay,
it has a neck.
Okay, and there are holes in the pot. Okay, and it tried to bring that example. All right, that was on the bottom of 7b 3 or b2, whatever it is in our scroll. Okay, all right, and then the Gemara says Amar Rava there. Dilma lohi, that's not the case. Ad kan lo kama Rabbi Yehuda hatam ela bisvina, regarding the boat, ha'asuya livroach, because the boat is in motion, the boat rocks, right? Aval atzitz she'eno asui livroach, but this pot, okay, that is not motion, okay, lo, that's not the case. Okay, so that's where we ended yesterday, okay, seeing that issue. Okay, so he's saying that therefore that may make a difference in making the comparison. Okay, so we, sorry, so we're picking up on Chet Amud Aleph, okay, a second line from the top of the Amud. Okay, and fortunately these Amudim are a lot shorter. Okay, the next few, really. Okay, so what happens? Says the Gemara, Inami adkan lo ka'amrei Rabbanan hatam ela b'sfina. If we're going to say there that we're talking about the view of the rabbis vis-a-vis the boat situation, the lo mafsik avira, but because there we're saying that if the boat, okay, is floating on the water and is rubbing against perhaps the, okay, there's no, right? There's no separation of air.
There's
right?
No air between
but
the
right.
plant in the boat.
Okay.
And the surface of the boat. And there's no...
Well, the air, there's no air in between. That's what the Gemara is saying. Okay. Damya ki ara smichta smichata demaya. Why? Because the air is close to the water. In other words, you have that proximity, okay, between the water, the ground underneath the water.
Substantial, okay. Like dirt is.
Okay, and then you have the item that's in the boat. Okay, whether it's earth, okay, whatever. Okay, what happens now? Demaya. Aval atzitz demaf. But whereas the pot, even though it has holes in it, remember, demafsik aviv. Okay, where there is a separation. Lo, that's not the case. Okay. So what happens? The Gemara continues. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak Amar. He says, what are we talking about? The Naharot de Eretz Yisrael. The way they're talking about the rivers in Eretz Yisrael. And the example I gave was particularly the Jordan River. Okay? I use that as an example for two reasons. Number one, because the kind of boats that would go along the Jordan were more like rafts. Okay, so there was very little, would be very little area between if there were dirt inside the boat and the water, okay? And secondly, because Jordan River is considered in some ways a border, okay? So what happens? The Kuli Alma Lo Plige. Everybody doesn't disagree. Eliki Pligi, where do they disagree? Biyam Hagadol. In the Mediterranean, where it's much deeper. Okay, so what happens to Tanya? sorry, Titania taught in the Braita, Ezehu Eretz, Ve'ezehu Chutzala Eretz. So here we get a clear now discussion about what are the borders of Eretz Israel,
in the Mediterranean.
okay, and what are the borders and what are not. Okay, so what do we see here? All right, so we're going to get a description. Kol sheshofea v'yored miturei Amnon v'lifnim. Anything where the mountaintops, the mountain peaks go down, okay? And if you travel up in Eretz Israel in that area, okay, by Rosh, not by the shore, okay, you can actually see how the land is shaped there, okay, and follow down. Ulifnim, and internally, Eretz Yisrael, okay? Miturei Amnon ulechutz, from these mountaintops to the rest of the
North.
Okay, no, outside.
That means north.
To the coastline. Okay, all right. Chutz la'aretz is considered the outside land of Eretz Yisrael proper. Okay. Now what happens? So now the Gemara continues. Hanisin shebayam, the islands that are in the Yam Hagadol, in the Mediterranean. Ro'ino tan ki'ilu chut matuach aleihem miturei Amnon ad nachal Mitzrayim. Okay, so this is the Chachamim's view that if you were to take a line from these mountains, okay, area all the way along the Mediterranean coast down to what would be considered today El Arish, okay, that area. All right, Wadi El Arish in the south, all right? Okay, Min Hachut V'Lifnim Eretz Yisrael.
It's a map on it.
Right. I'm going to pass this around also in just a moment. Okay, that would be considered Eretz Yisrael, and you know every country, this is even today, considers in their borders a certain amount of miles off their coast as equal to their land. Okay, Eretz Yisrael. Min hachut ulechutz, and from that further out is chutz la'aretz, is outside. West. Okay. Now, what's the view Rabbi Yehuda Omer? Rabbi Yehuda gives a different view, and then I'm going to pass. Right? Says as follows: Kol shekneged Eretz Yisrael, anything that is opposite the borders of the land of Israel itself, extending harehu ke'eretz Yisrael, extending out, Shneamar, as it says, Ugevul Yam v'haya lachem, and the border of the sea shall be for you. Hayam Hagadol, Ugevul zeh yeh lachem Gevul Yam. Okay, so if you, Michael, if you right, take that please and pass it around, you can see the one on the left is the Chachamim, the one on the right. So we're going to get to that. Okay, we're going to get to that. Okay, but here's Rabbi Yehuda's view is everything all extending the Mediterranean all the way out to Gibraltar. Okay, that would be his view. All right, and again, so you have the islands in the middle, like Cyprus, Crete, that area.
You keep reading.
Right. Okay. Okay. What happens there? Vahanisin shebetzdadin, and the islands that are on the sides. Okay.
Greece.
All right. Well, Greece wouldn't be an island.
Greece is a whole cluster of islands. Greece is an archipelago of 1,000 islands.
No, this part of it. The other part is attached to the land. Okay. Ro'ino tan ki'ilu chut matuach aleihen. We see them from as if a thread is stretched. Aleihem mikafloria ba'ad yam okeanos. From there, from the northern border of Eretz Yisrael, all the way out to the Atlantic Ocean. Okay. Uminachal Mitzrayim. Okay, so that was Wadi El Arish, Nachal Mitzrayim, Va'ad Yam Okeanos, again stretching out to the Atlantic, but it does not include those islands. Min hachut v'lefnim, from that inside Eretz Yisrael, min hachut l'chutz, chutz la'aretz. Okay, otherwise, what's above or below, okay, would be chutz la'aretz. So there's a marked difference, as we can see, not just from the map, but from the description as to how far the border of Eretz Yisrael would be, implying, okay, again, the whether or not the recitation of the declaration is going to be required. Okay, all right. So that's what's our point is there in going through this discussion of boundaries. V'Rabbanan, and then the rabbis, how do they deal with this pasuk implying about the gvul? Okay, that the word gvul is used here. Ma'yavdele, what do they do with it? Mebayele l'nisim. They needed to include certain islands or exclude certain islands. Rabbi Yehuda, nisim lo tzrichei kra. His attitude is that these islands don't need any pasuk to clarify their status. Okay, now, okay, we go on. Rabbi Meir Omer Akko ke'eretz Yisrael v'chule. Okay, Rabbi Meir said in our Mishnah that Akko is considered like Eretz Yisrael. Okay, Ba'u minei mi Rabbi Chia bar Abba. So they asked Rabbi Chia bar Abba, Hamocher avdo l'Surya, one who sells his servant in the land of, let's call it for the moment, Surya. Okay, so what has happened? He has taken his servant literally really outside the boundaries of Eretz Yisrael into another area. Okay, and he sells his servant there. Kemocher b'chutz la'aretz dami olo. Do we consider it like selling it outside the land of Israel or not? Okay, why is that? We're going to see that there's a question about the fact that the area of Syria has some parallels to Eretz Israel and some differences. Exactly. That's what we're going to get to. Okay? Amar lahu. So he says to them, Tinituha. We learned this previously, or we have a solution to this from something we've learned. Okay? Rabbi Meir Omer, says Rabbi Meir, Akko ke Eretz Yisrael legitin. That Akko is similar to the land of Israel regarding a get document for divorce. Legitin and la'avadim lo. For gitin, yes. For servants, no. The kol shekain Surya, the mirchaka tuva, and all the more so Syria, because it is even farther away. Okay, and Akko, and we said anything from Akko north is considered chutz la'aretz, outside the land.
What was the issue with the servant? If you sell a Jewish slave out of Israel, sell a Eved Canaan outside Israel, you can't do that. It's just like giving this.
You're basically, the question is, the whole idea is the Eved Canaani is, when owned by a Jew, remember, is in the status of such of almost like a Jew. Okay,
so if
you sell him to a non-Jew, it's putting him back into Avodah Zarah. So that's why you didn't want to do. Okay. Tanu Rabbanan. Braita follows. B'shlosha drachim shavta Surya le'eretz Yisrael. In 3 ways, Surya is similar to Eretz Yisrael. B'shlosha lechutz la'aretz. And in 3 ways, it's set different from. It's more like outside outside countries. Siman, okay, which gives us a little mnemonic device of barak. Okay, example number 1, the av. Afra tameh kechutz la'aretz. Its land, in other words, its ground is impure, just like any other foreign land. Okay. Second, v'amocher avdo l'Surya. And one who sells his servant, okay, in Syria, okay, is like selling it outside the land of Israel. Right? And the third, va'amevi get mi Syria, kamevi mi chutz la'aretz. Thank you. and one who brings, okay, who's the messenger and brings the get from Syria is right, and is like bringing it outside the land, and therefore is expected to make the declaration b'fanai nechtav u'b'fanai nechtav u'b'shlosha la'eretz Yisrael. And in three things they are similar to the land of Israel. Number one, chayevet b'maaser, okay, u'b'shvi'it ke'eretz Yisrael. Okay, so we're saying that there's the issue of tithing, and there's the issue of Shemitah. Next, harotzeh likanes la b'tahara nichnas. One who wants to enter there, okay, in a status of purity, can enter there. How do they do that? Well, we're going to see in a moment, says the Gemara. Vahakone shadeh b'Syria, okay, and one who purchases land in Syria. What happens as we go to the next Amud? Kikoneh parvarei Yerushalayim. It's like he purchased land in the suburbs of Jerusalem. Okay?
For the mitzvah of
all right. So Yishu. Right? Chayevet b'maaser v'shvi'it ke'eretz Yisrael. We say that he is obligated in tithing and in Shemitah things. Why? Kesavar kibush yachid shmei kibush. Why? Because we say we're of the opinion that the conquering by a single individual, namely King David, in this situation when he decided to expand the borders of the kingdom, is considered a valid conquest. Second, v'harotzeh likanes la b'tahara, one who wants to enter that location in purity, nichnas is able to do so. But the Gemara questions and challenges. V'ha'amart, but didn't you say afarat me tameh, that its earth, its ground is impure? So what's our answer? B'sheda, teva, umigdal, through the use of a carriage or a trunk or a closet. Okay, one of these things. Okay, and these are items that, okay, oftentimes they talked about like a kind of chair that was enclosed. All right, all right. So what happens through these means, as we're taught to Tanya, hanichnas la'eretz ha'amim b'sheda teva umigdal, one who enters foreign lands in a carriage, trunk, or closet. Okay, although I'm not, anyway. Rebbe Matame, Rebbe says it's Tame. Rebbe Yossi, but Rebbe Yehuda Metaher, he says it's Tahor. Vafilu Rebbe lo kamatame, and even Rebbe does not indicate that it's Tame. Ela be'eretz ha'amim de gazru al gusha va'al avira, regarding the foreign lands, because there the rabbis made a decree that not only the earth itself, but even the air, okay, is time. Aval Surya, in regards to Surya, al Gusha Gazru, they made their decree on the land, al Avira, lo Gazru, but on the airspace, they did not make it. Okay. Now we get to the third example, Va'koneh Sadeh b'Surya, and one who purchases land in Syria, Kikoneh Parvarei Yerushalayim. It's like he purchased land in the suburbs of Jerusalem. Lamai Hilchata. So what then is the law? Amar Rav Sheshet, says Rav Sheshet. Lomar shekodvin alav ono. Okay. Va'afilu b'Shabbat. It means that one can even write his bill of sale or mortgage even on Shabbos. Shabbat sakadata. You really think that's permissible on Shabbos? He says, Kida Amar Rava. It's as was said by Rava, Omer le'oved kochavim va'osei, that he may say it to a Gentile, and the Gentile would do it. Hachanami, here too, Omer le'oved kochavim va'osei. Here too, he could say it to a Gentile, and he would do it in that case as well. Okay. So what happens now? Va'afal gab, da'amira lo'oved kochavim shvut. But wait a second, says the Gemara. Amira la'akum is generally not permitted, especially on Shabbat. All right, it's an act of shvut. All right, so what is the situation? Mishum Yishuv Eretz Yisrael Lo Gazur Rabbanan, because of the mitzvah of dwelling in the land of Israel, inhabiting or populating, the land of Israel, it is not, no decree was made there. Okay, we go now to a new bright. Okay, and I want to point out that we're going to see here in this brighter the following. Eved Shehevi Gito. Okay, a servant that brings his document of freedom. Okay, call it shtar cherut, call it bill of manumission, depending on how you want to translate the term. Okay, but it's making a parallel here between the servant himself bringing the document.
We talked earlier
about a woman being able to bring the
document.
Yeah. Okay. Ukatuv bo, and it's written in the document. Okay, the following: Atzmacha v'nechsai knuyim lach. Okay, in the document it spells out from the former master. Okay, my property. Okay, you yourself and my property are acquired by you. Okay, what happens? Atzmo kana. We say he's acquired himself. In other words, he gains his freedom. Okay, but what happens? Chasim lo kana, but he doesn't acquire the property. Ibayelo. So the Gemara asks here, okay, in another situation.
Different wording.
Okay, what happens if in the document, okay, it's different language than what we just had before? What happens if the language in the document says, Kol nechasai knuyim lach mahu? What happens if it's phrased that way? How does that apply to the situation? Amar Abai, says Abai, mitoch shekana atzmo kana nechasim. From the fact that he was able to acquire his own status now as a free man, he's also going to be able to acquire the
because it's
property.
Only one clause. Everything I have is
okay.
yours.
What happens is there, since he uses the word kol, which means all, okay, then both the servant and the goods are appropriately his.
According to one view.
Right? So what happens? Amar le Rabba. So Rabba then responds to Abaye. Bishlema atzmo likne. That's understandable that he himself has gained his freedom, has acquired his status. Midei dahava aget isha. And we can learn that from its similarity to the document of divorce for a woman, right? She's permitted then to go out and marry anyone. So therefore it applies to him as well.
She's permitted to come to Beis Din on her own behalf. And he's
now the Beis Din then allows her to go out to marry.
Yeah, but the point of it is she can testify on her own behalf. That's the comparison here.
I didn't have that.
You're wrong.
Well, I'm just telling you, I didn't have that pshat. Okay? That was the pshat.
That's the only possible pshat.
That's the art scroll pshat.
It's the only possible pshat.
Okay.
Because he is being compared to her. Just
yes,
as
he brings the get, she brings the get and presents it to the Beis Din. Okay. So he brings the get. That's the point. Okay? Ele nechasim lo likne. So according to Rava, okay, the property he does not acquire. Midei dahava akiyum shtarot da'alma. Why? Because since that is, so to speak, a different situation based on okay, on not just monetary. It's both a monetary, but it's also not this parallel to the woman, okay? All right, and so therefore that document, that aspect has to have the normal way of certification. That's the point, which would imply there you have to have two witnesses, so on, etc. That's the point.
It's the owner gave him the property. Yeah, but he can't do that.
But Rava is saying that does not work, okay? Because in that case, we have to process it like any other normal document dealing with financial issues. That's the point, okay? Right? Benechasim lo likne. Midei dahava akiyum shtaro da'am. So what happens? Abai comes back. Hadar Amar Abai. Abai comes back with a response.
Now he's changing his mind.
Well, we'll see. It's still a response. Mitoch shelo kana nechasim. Okay. What? Right. Okay. So Abai comes back and says, "Mitoch shelo kana nechasim, lo kana atzmo." Okay. If that's the case, since he's not able to acquire the property, he's not able to acquire himself. Why? Because the text in the document said kol nechasai knuyim lach, all, implying that was one item there, all of it. Okay, slave, the servant, and the goods. Right? Amar le Rava, says Rava now back in response. Bishle menechasim lo likne. That's understandable that he should not be able to acquire the properties. Midei dahava akiyum shtaro da'alma. Because I, Rava, hold that element, that aspect has to be fulfilled by the normal process of two witnesses, etc., etc. Okay, for the document. Ela atzmo likne. But I'll argue, says Rava, that he does acquire his own freedom. Why? Midei dahava aget isha. Because I compare it to the example of the document of divorce for the woman, where she is able to bring the document herself, present it to the Beis Din then decides that that is adequate enough to let her go out, marry somebody else. Likewise, the slave is...
Isn't the slave considered a piece of property for the owner? So what's the difference between that property and this property?
That's part of it.
Because
question.
He's considered property in terms of the halachas of acquisition, but in terms of the properties of disposition, he can, in order to to free a slave, you write a document that's called a get. Well, you're not allowed to free a slave. But if you do, it's called. Okay, if he agrees to be a full Jew, I mean, there are conditions. But if you write this document, the minute you hand it to him, he's free. Just as the minute the husband or the agent hands the woman her get, she's free. And that's going to be a factor. Because if I free my slave, I don't need a Beis Din, I don't need anything. The minute I give him the document, he's free. If I want to sell you property, I have to write a contract, and it has to be signed by witnesses.
It's a different kind of transaction.
So it takes more time, and that's going to be
okay.
Work this out to transfer property than it does to.
Okay, so we got to the point. So he says, Amar Rava, echad zeh ve'echad zeh, atzmo kana, nechasim lo kana. Okay, so that's where Rava stands.
Depending on, it doesn't matter what the word.
Right. Amar le Rav Adabar Matna. He says the Rava Keman, according to whom? Karabi Shimon. The Amar Palginan Dibura, who says that we split up, okay, the language. So even though the language of the document suggested in the second example was Kol Nichasai Knuyim Lach, Rabbi Shimon and Rava following that would say, no, we divided up. Okay? The Tnan, as we learned, Hakotev Kol Nichasav La'avdo, okay? Yatsa Ben Chorim. That one who writes all of his property goes to his servant. The servant goes out as a free person. Okay? Shi'er karka kol shehu, but if he leaves him any amount of real karka, real property, right?
If he still has any,
right? In other words, if he retains any amount of it, lo yatsa ben chorin, okay, then he does not go out as a free person. And just to roll over to the top a little bit, Rabbi Shimon Omer, this is Rabbi Shimon, le'olam hu ben chorin, okay, they're right, he is going to be a free person. Ad shiomar kol mechasai netunin leploni avdi chutz me'achad meribo shabahem. Okay, unless he puts a condition on it in that situation. Okay, well, that's putting a condition. Okay, so we'll stop there on top of Tet. We'll pick up there, finish this Mishnah, okay, and then get, okay, yeah, and go on from there.
Thank you, Rabbi Green.
Okay, Alan, take care.
Thank you.
Harvey has not been well. What?
I know that's another statement, but
he was in the hospital. He went home. He's gone back for more tests. The tests do not show anything, but basically, I don't know if he had COVID. I don't know that. That's just my supposition. He finds the food has no taste. He has no appetite, things like that. So he is very weak. I spoke to Lee. I called her initially about a month ago to find out. That's how I knew that he was going into the hospital. Okay. Then I called her just the other night again to find out what was doing. And she said, all his tests come back and don't show anything. Okay. And the result, but he is very weak because he's not eating. And so she's not sure, That's why I'm wondering if he could have had some form of COVID, because one of the things we've seen or heard about is that for some people it destroys their taste. Things like that. How are you? How are you doing? Okay. All right. There's a flyer. There's a flyer out there, and the bullet will be coming out as well. But there is, you want the tikkun itself, Rabbi Yasker is going to speak, I think, at 11. And then there's a break, and then there's another speaker after that. Before that, on Friday, I don't remember exactly, right? But Rabbi Mizrahi, who's a guest, is speaking one time, and Rabbi Estovitz is speaking another time on Shabbos. So there'll be a number of speakers. I had to opt out of speaking this year, basically because I was moving and resetting up. Yeah, we moved from Wolverton, to Yarmouth. So. You're walking? There you go. Okay. What is your latest on Harvey? I spoke to Lee the other night. Today's Wednesday. Called him on the phone? Called Lee on the phone. Monday night. He said he's very weak, not eating. He has no taste. I will meet you outside. He has no taste. And she said specifically they did all sorts of tests, and nothing seems to, indicate.
When I listen on the phone, I have a lot better navigation and to listen to.
All right.
That's my own comment.
I
Live
understand.
in person is one thing, so it's going to be Zooming or whatever the one.
No, we're not going to do the Zoom. Good morning, June. Good morning. Good morning. Okay. Okay. Did Rob go into the restroom? Yep. Okay. Okay. I assume you heard all the drilling and all the noise. The other day, the handyman came to attach my bookcases to the wall. That was